Valley to
Okay.
be precise. So it's San Diego, but just a little farther.
Yeah. So she just, for you guys who are listening, she just arrived like yesterday and is looking fresh as a daisy. Um, so let me get this started and then I'll just go ahead and do a short introduction and we can start.
Oh,
That's
Cheryl is there. Hi, Cheryl. Oh my
the
gosh,
people. Are there people you
pleasure.
recognize?
What a pleasure.
And Philip from Tasmania, I adore you. I don't know you at all, but I see you a lot, and I'm so glad that you're joining us.
From
Um,
Tanzania. I think it's
from
the first
Tasmania.
time in my life that I'm aware of that someone from Tasmania is in a conversation where I'm
I
part of.
know. So you're
Beautiful.
a little bit of a star, Philip. So, um, and so as people are still continuing to join, I'm just going to go ahead and do kind of a quick introduction. I know there are a couple people that I don't recognize. Um, in the attendees list. So I just wanted to let them know if they're new to FMBR, the Foundation for Mind Being Research. Um, my name is Judy Kitt. I'm the president, and this foundation was started 44 years ago now in 1980, about the time when people were kind of talking about the mind-body connection, and um, and the founders really wanted to focus on human consciousness and the nature of reality. And they wanted to kind of get past the just mind body. They were saying it's mind, it's mind being. That's where the name comes from, this kind of mind being idea. And it was really just founded to explore consciousness. And so we've been doing that for 44 years now. And it started as a forum for people who were doing research in this area, um, the nature of consciousness and nature of reality, unexplained phenomena kind of things to present their work and really have a conversation about it. And then when the pandemic hit, we moved online like everybody else, and that enabled us to just find more people who are interested in this topic and really to engage really fascinating topics. So, like what we're going to talk about tonight. So, I just will want to welcome everybody here. We have a YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, you just look for FMBR TV, and most of our presentations are up there. You could just check those out. And our website is fmbr.org. So, so as I said before, for people who may not have been here at the time, Esperide Ananas Ametista, PhD, doctor, is joining us from Italy. She lives in Damanhur, Italy, and she just arrived in California yesterday. She is a psychosocial sociologist and a spiritual mentor. She embodies a unique blend of deep wisdom, creativity, and empathetic guidance. She's also authored several books exploring the nuances of spiritual philosophy. Her latest work, called 33 Lives from the Book of Time, is the culmination of the 2 decades of dedicated research into the exploration of past lives. Over the last 3 decades, Esperida has chosen the spiritual community of Damanhur in Italy as her home base. There, for over 20 years, she worked and studied alongside Falco, Damanhur's late founder and spiritual guide. As a spiritual healer and psychic, Esperide, I'm sorry, brings a wealth of expertise fostering holistic well-being and inner transformation. So welcome, Esperida.
Thank
Esperida, I am not saying that well, I'm sorry. Um, and I just want to note that we met in January when I visited Damanhur, and I was able to do some classes with you and some ceremony with you, and it was just such a transformational time. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. And thank you for coming to talk to us about the nature of time and past lives. Um, I was thinking about that this afternoon about how, when people started talking in my reality, people were talking about past lives and past life regressions and really trying to find it as a source of trauma, right? To find the sources of trauma that you've brought forth and heal those. And it seems now that we're um, kind of reframing, especially with your work, reframing what past lives with the gifts of exploring past lives can give, and to help us create a positive future going forward. So yes, so so
So,
is that what you, I mean, that's what that's what we're about, right?
yes, and I would say that the focus of my work after so many years is really to help all of us, and first of all myself, obviously, because if I'm the one exploring and teaching this, it's because I'm the one who needs to learn it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this, is to really understand the nature of ourselves as time beings.
Mhm.
Like beings, they're made of time. So beings that live across time. So the idea is that, we always normally identify with one personality, one me now, and we think I have lived past lives, therefore there is some trauma or even get something coming from the past to us. Actually, in my understanding now, after so many years, is not like that. These lives are passed from a certain perspective, but from the perspective of us as the beings that we are, as the divine beings, they are all happening contemporaneously. So we are a puzzle of lives whose essence is not here now, but whose essence is really permeating time simultaneously, giving the divine that is within us an experience in this world of forms that happens at the same time. So it's very difficult to talk about this because time has no synonymous and it's impossible to describe time without saying time. So, which is already an interesting indication of how complex the relationship with this dimension is for us and how much we still need to discover to be able to feel it. But I feel that this is one of the archetypes, the functioning programs that we've lost is the relationship with time. So we often become sort of slaves to time, meant as, kairos, the time that comes and it's quantitative and it says this is how much and this is how much you've done and this is how many days I've lived. And we feel it's never enough. While there is another way to be in connection with time, the Greeks explored this very much, and they looked at three different ways. One is this one. Time is a quantity of things, of days, things that I've done, and is the one we relate mostly in our society today. And as I said, most of us feel there's never enough of it, but that already means we're not in a healthy relation with this dimension. Then there is another time, which is the time that we experience as a subjective relationship, when that magical moment in which you can grasp an opportunity comes and everything can change. And that is still time, but it's time perceived differently. Right? It's time where we feel there is a relationship. But if at that time we're looking somewhere else, that magical moment might pass and we never grasp it. And then there is a third time, which is what the Greeks felt it was beyond everything, which is eternal time, which is actually the container of everything. So in our experience in life, we have these three different times that constantly intertwine to create our experience. And when we start to concentrate on how they mix and how we can relate to them, we start getting closer to this idea that we're beings that actually live within time as a dimension.
Yes, and you mentioned, I saw, you mentioned describing time as a territory.
Yes.
Say more about that.
So if I were to ask you and everyone who's listening to us now, and by the way, hi, because I didn't properly even say hi to anyone. Thank you for being here and hi, everyone. So if I were to ask you or everyone online now to think about the opera in Paris, the building of the opera in Paris, or the Eiffel Tower in Paris, to make it easier. And if I were to ask you, Judy, is the Eiffel Tower there now? What would be your automatic answer?
Is it in Paris?
Yeah,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
absolutely, right? Because we're used to thinking that if something is geography, it's existing. But you really don't know, because the Eiffel Tower right now could not even be there. It could have been destroyed. It could have been taken by aliens that brought it somewhere else because they liked it very much. Like you have no objective way of knowing. But your mind and all of your system of perception is so used to say, well, yes, of course, it's not here, it's in Paris, and it is there. So when we think of maps, of geography, we are pretty sure the things are there. The things are still there in our geography. So think of this in time. If we could imagine that time were the same thing, that time is a territory, then I could ask you, well, is an example, your own past life in Paris in the year 1725 still there? Then by the same logic, you will have to say yes.
Mhm.
So what I invite people to do and feel, and I like this idea also, I think when maybe at the time in which your wonderful foundation was started, the idea of what the body was is different from what the idea of what the body is now. Because for
Exactly.
me, the key to everything is actually in the body, right? The
Mm.
antennas that allow us to tune to a different time frequency, which allows us to relive those events and those sensations. And then we see what is relevant to relive, but it's all in the body. We can learn to orient ourselves. So from that point of view, if I were to ask you, is that life still there? You will have to say yes, because it's the same thing of a geography. So this is what I invite people to do, to orient their perception, the receptors of feelings and sensation in their cells to another time. And then discover it's all there and you can live it. So my work is not about regression in that you're sitting on an armchair and I guide you, but it's how can I make you feel that person again? How can I make you feel what that person was feeling? So if you are discovering, for instance, the past life of a man, how can I make Judy perceive the body of a man? How can I help you remember what food you liked, what smells you were smelling? Because it's all in the senses. And then when we do that, I think the greatest gift is that we really get out of this linearity of thinking that we are slaves of that time, which is a quantity and is one day after the other after the other. Of course, that exists. This is our ordinary perception. Yet, together with that ordinary perception, we can more and more acquire a very different way of perceiving. And with that different way of perceiving, we start to realize, wow, then maybe this is the way of perceiving that is part of my soul, is part of that, what you were saying before also, what is beyond.
Mhm. And then bringing it into your experience.
Yes.
This goes to exactly one of the questions that Jackie just posed, which is, why am I only conscious of this one life, right?
Well,
Why is
yeah, there are many reasons. One is that we are as human beings a bit asleep, right? So these are times of awakening. And so this is part of the process of awakening, that to start realize that, wow, I can be aware of other parts of myself in other parts of time. But we live in a culture, in a religion, in a society that is telling you it's only now, and maybe according to your belief there is paradise or whatever, but it ends, right? And then maybe you come back gloriously in a body of energy only. So we are used to not being able to think differently. Normally, all of us, when we're children, we would remember something. It's rare that children don't remember. It's also rare that as adults, we don't have proclivities that can tell us something. There are people that come to Italy and say, wow, I know this feels like home, or you can see the Renaissance in the face of some people. I'm just using an example of Italy. When I went to Greece for the first time, I recognized the light. And I said, well, this light, I've never seen the frequency of this light in this lifetime before, but I know it. So we all have things that we like, things that we really don't, they have no reason in this lifetime because they're part of these memories that we have. So we have hints. On the other hand, it's important that every time we start a new lifetime, at least in the body and level of awakening we have now generally, it's good that we do not remember our past lives because it would be too overwhelming. So it's good that we learn how we can tap into those memories little by little when we are spiritually, psychologically, and physically ready for it. So I think there is some wisdom in that. But then as we awaken collectively, and it will become part of the society to understand that, then it will be easier because it will be normal. And another important thing that I would like to say is that in my view, this is very different from the idea that you live one lifetime now, you die, you reincarnate, and then you are, according to your karma, it will be better or worse. Because from my perspective, all of these lives are happening simultaneously, which means also the concept of karma. And by karma, I simply mean, a balance between action and reaction in the choices that we make is across the whole board. Is not linear, is not now and the next, the next, the next. So when we start thinking like this, we become much more compassionate with ourselves. And then eventually, if we really get this into ourselves with others, because we understand that if I am playing all of this at the same time, maybe some, again, I generalize and exaggerate a bit, but say that there is certain kinds of people I really do not like at all. Well, what if I am one of those people right now in another points of time? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. What if it's because I've lived or I'm living that life and I have difficulties, and that's why I'm feeling such a resistance or hatred even sometimes. And then we become more
Oh, interesting.
compassionate and we start to
That
accept differences, which is so crucial for us now.
and
Because if
that kind of ripples through the experience
exactly,
with because there's a resonance in your
always.
own energy body.
Yeah, because if you think of this, well, if then, if your essence is the broadcast, let's say that the essence outside of time is broadcasting to all the different bodies that you are, to all the different lives, that station that is broadcasting is always the same. So those bodies, those beings are picking up the same frequencies. So you are the same being simultaneously with different human bodies across time. And of course, not only on this planet and not only human, we can have, we can be also cat simultaneously. But let's keep it simple now. Let's just go with
I was
human
going to say
on
this
this
could get
planet for the
very
moment.
complex. Um, I wanted to ask, and this is just sort of a curiosity of mine because I met someone recently last year who uh, was told by a psychic, kind of out of the blue, said, I think you should be painting because I think you're the reincarnation of a Dutch master. And this person had never painted, had never taken any classes or anything, but just decided to start painting. And 3 years later, he is painting in the style of Dutch master. Like I've never, I mean, it's amazing. He just tapped into that talent, the skill level that he had, 400 years ago, and brought it forward. And when I spoke to him, he said, "Oh yeah, I do that in everything." If I want to learn baking, I just, kind of figure out a past life where I knew how to do that and I bring it forward,
I know
which
there is a man who's doing this. I don't know if this is the same person, but there is a man, and there's been videos all over the internet of him doing this and doing whatever he wants. Just say, oh, I just tap
oh,
into this and I could do anything.
I have no, I've never this guy's very
Yeah.
private and no, so I would love to see that. I think about what possibilities there are, for accessing really positive skill sets and even kind of spiritual, I'm going to use the word spiritual technology, but kind of spiritual awareness, spiritual um, uh, elevated states that we may have in another life and kind of bring it forward into this reality that can
Sure.
help us awaken and navigate these times of really profound transition.
Yeah, and even if we are going to find lives in which we really struggled, but that tells us that we can do it.
Mm.
Like that we have gone through already so much that we've been able to, and this gives us more strength for what we are living now. It can be, I think the wisdom of our soul, of that divine essence in us, is to bring us that information that is really useful for us. Because again, okay, I was a Dutch master and now I can paint again like him or her. And what for? So we have to ask, that gift that I had in that lifetime, why is it significant for me to do it again? Because now that I paint, I feel more complete, because I can give joy to people again. So what's important then is to give meaning to everything in the now, in where we're now, because even if, of course, that essence is living simultaneously in other points of time, we have to give the utmost importance to the lifetime in which we're identifying now, because this is where we're holding the cards in this particular game now, right? So I'm Esperide, and I have to try to be the best version of Esperide that I can. So when I go into my different points of living in different points of time, it has to help me expand who I am for my service to life, humanity, or whatever every person feels now. And so that together, collectively, we can create a new timeline, not for me, not just for you, for all of us together. This is why I feel for me it's so important not so much to guide people on an individual healing and expansion, which is a very important part of the work. But what is more important is when by doing that, we realize, oh my gosh, we really are all one. So my next future timeline is yours and that of whole of humanity.
I love that. I love that. It's really empowering because it speaks to um, one of the Jerry is on, and a lot of people I talk to. It's this. We're really in this time of learning who we really are, right? Learning, really expanding our vision of who we are and how much power we have to uh, change timelines,
Yeah.
right? And to choose.
And again, these are times in which I think it's very important that we start to understand that we have to do it for all of us. That we have to stop putting the me. If someone wants to embark on a past life research because they want to have more for themselves and more, maybe is not so much aligned with the spirit of these times. This is,
Yeah,
of course, to do it for me, because then I can be more in service to others.
yeah, yeah. It feels like that's. I mean, hopefully that's an old story, right? That's an old paradigm that we're shifting away from. God willing. And we're helping to make that happen as we increase our awareness and learn new techniques and learn more about who we are. So talk to me about time. Let me see, I wrote this down. Time as alive and sentient.
Well, if you start thinking that even just the concept that we can change timelines, it implies an interaction.
Mhm.
Otherwise, what can we change? Like Einstein had a very different idea. Einstein said time does not exist, but not because it didn't exist, but simply because he said everything has already happened. The past, the present, and the future. And his metaphor for time was that of a frozen river. So he said there is a higher consciousness, God, and for him it was very similar to what the philosopher Spinoza described as God, which is this intelligence which permeates everything in nature and has the program basically of where we're going. And so he said only God can see the whole time, and everything is already happening and will happen continuously till the end of whatever this particular thing is. which doesn't exist because it's only space-time, according to Einstein. So for him, everything was in existence, and you couldn't really have so much of a relationship with it, because if it's already happened, the present, the past, and the future, how can you relate to it? But when we're saying that we can change timelines, which is the consciousness we have now after quantum physics and after the understanding that the events exist only with the heaven observer, which is now being brought by certain scientists to the level of the universe, not just tiny, subatomic particles. They react in a certain way only when they're observed, but there's starting to have equations that say, well, actually, the whole universe works like that. So then you have the question, so what is the consciousness that is actually observing the universe into existence? And it becomes obvious then that it's not just an individual consciousness or point of attention, but that's why it's so important we understand collectively that we are something more, right? There is some higher everything, or higher, at least humanity, that has higher levels of observation that it can interact with reality more. So this is a long premise to say, if we can interact with reality, with the universe, and with time, it means that somehow there is an interplay. It's a relationship. And I cannot be in relation with something which is dead and already fixed. I can only be in relation with something that plays with me. So sentient in the sense that in the more esoteric or spiritual way of looking at time, and then again, we can take the Greek myths that connected time to different gods, meaning there is a consciousness also in time. And it's not just a mathematical equation, but it's part of these forces of evolution with which we can have an interaction.
I'm loving this so much because it's so expansive. And you go back to, you talked about us as time beings.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna just wrap my head around that a little more. So time beings navigating physicality on multiple time streams.
Yeah. Yes. And why? Because, if we're outside of time, everything is happening simultaneously, past, present, and future. So on this, we agree with Einstein.
Mhm.
But it also means that our true nature is not in the physicality, it's outside, but it's constantly transmitting to physicality. So it's hard to separate them when we are inside this part of the universe, which is characterized by form. And forms are characterized by diversity, right? We're all distinct forms. I'm a body, you're another body. We're all one in terms of consciousness, but then the experience we have here is also that of uniqueness, of separation. And this is what we're feeding back to the divine, which is unity. How could the absolute have experience of this part of creation that has been created by the absolute, but we cannot contain the absolute in this particular level of reality that is so dense and made of discrete units. So it needs to enter some of these discrete units to be fed back the experience that we have while we are inside this dimension of time. So basically, we are the senses of God, of the absolute, having an experience into a part of creation that this incommensurable force that we can't even conceive has created to have some kind of, I don't know, a thrill maybe, the thrill of the I don't know, no, we cannot even think of it. But it is obvious that the absolute cannot be all absolutely fully contained in a world like ours, which is all separation and diversity. So then why would this be? Because then we can feed back this experience, and then it will be back to the absolute, but a higher level of consciousness. So then form itself will become, fully aware of being divine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like forgetting. There are so many myths about this. the divinities
Right.
entering into form, forgetting their gods, and having to go through this whole process of awakening to go back to the originary unity with the experience of what it means not to be in unity. And I think this is the journey, the famous mythos of the fall from what? Fall from unity to have this experience and bring back this, the pleasure of individuality, to melt it again with the greatest unity that we can reach.
And that just reframes, because the fall, and it's also in some myths, it's a sinfulness, right? It's very dense and judged as a
Yeah.
negative thing. And I love how this reframes, like this is the experience that we chose,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah. And
be in physicality.
absolutely. And fall, like, it's also used in physics. Like
Mhm.
falling, a particle can fall. A fallen particle means that the vibration lowers, and this is definitely what happened to us. Like, as a species, it's obvious that we do not belong to matter. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think I need to explain this to anyone listening, but this is matter form is transient. Like, we are born, we die. It means this is not our ultimate container. We are something else. We're a species that belongs to maybe the astral planes. And then, we come as a species. Of course, we have a divine, but the divine goes through the astral, connects to what we normally call a soul, our soul, which is also a composite, because if we have many past lives, they're all together in this oversoul. And then we fall, meaning our frequency lowers, and we literally fall into a lower vibrational field, which is where we connect to the body. And then this
Right.
particular
So
container ends and our frequency rises again. We go back and we keep doing this simultaneously. So we can think
profound.
of fall without any negative connotation, just simply in physics. It's a vibration that lowers.
Right. It's just sort of a moving into density, right?
Exactly. Moving into
Into more
density.
dense experience, which is wonderful. And and as part of the awakening, you mentioned we're moving kind of back toward um, the awareness of our divine nature while still in form,
Yeah,
right? Because I've
exactly.
I've heard spiritual teachers, even some of my own spiritual teachers, who say, "Oh, it's not really possible to be fully aware of your divinity while you're in form," and I didn't like that answer because I think that's kind of what we're here to do, right?
Well, I think that probably what they mean is that we cannot describe fully and feel it. And I would agree with that. I think that while we are in form, we can get a sensation and a feeling of what it is, but fully we need to be able to transcend the state that we have now, at least the state that we have now. I don't know if it's absolutely impossible within form, but the level of evolution we have in form now, we feel it. We have another sense in our soul. We call it the sense of the divine, which basically is that awareness that we are divine. But do
Right.
I experience myself as fully divine? No, because I need to eat. I need to,
Right.
form
We are, yeah.
constantly reminding you that, and that, of course, you can go into samadhi and never eat and never sleep, but that would be already forgetting the form has its own program. So there is a constant negotiating in how much I feel human, how much I feel divine. And I also think that the divinity has also chosen to be in the body to experience that.
Experience that. And so there was a question earlier about then is aging just a perception, right? Rather than and not reality. Is aging perception and not reality?
This is a
Um,
very interesting question. I think that, and it's very interesting, particularly also for me, because now that I've been doing this work a lot, I'm actually wanting to go into time, a relation with time in relation to our belief about aging, because I think it relates very well to the work I've been doing so far, but it's my new field of thinking right now, how we can have a relation with time in this lifetime that alters how we age. So I think that we age because we're convinced that we have to,
Yeah.
collectively, because we're constantly looking at others and say, okay, this is what someone looks like at 40, 30, 50, 60. And we have a lot of, we have expectations, but these expectations are so deeply ingrained in our subconscious that at a certain point, they start giving orders to our body. So at a certain point, something in me, let's say, in me tells my body, okay, stop producing collagen. This is the time. This is the age. So it's some kind of held belief that I have in me that says and informs my cells and gives orders to my cells. So I think this is another one of those frontiers that collectively we need to really start changing what we believe in. Because when we can change the field collectively, it's easier to change it personally. Otherwise, we're always hitting barriers of, greater, in certain philosophy, could call this egregores or thought forms that is very difficult to get out of. But we've
Right.
seen how much this has already changed over the last few decades. The thing is,
Really.
right? But the thing is, this idea of remaining young and healthy and youthful is a very new idea. We have 100,000 of years of evolution where up to more or less 200 years ago, we were dying much younger. So there was no reason to be youthful at 60 because you were already dead at 60.
Right.
And if you look
Right.
at the program of nature, and there is a whole new, this is a little off the theme of past lives, but I think it's interesting with the theme of time. There is a whole branch of science now that is saying, well, if we look at nature, we could, and really nature is interested in just one thing, reproduction and making the species, all the species, better and better and better. And if we were living normally, like normally, with animals eating us and all of that, like there is a natural selection in animals, we would also have it in humans. So the strongest would survive. But now it's not the case because we have medicine, because we have sanitation, we have all those things that help also the weakest of the humans survive. But from the nature points of view, what is important is not the body, is the DNA. Right? That we can exchange, have babies that have better DNA than the parents. And so the human species can continue to evolve. This is what is interesting for nature. So the scientists say, really, for nature, the body is just the shell, the protection for the DNA. And after a certain age, which is the age in which you are to reproduce, the nature is not so interested in preserving you so much because you've done what you were here to do, to create a baby that has better DNA than yours. And so that's when we start this whole negotiating with life. Like, how do I keep healthy and young? But this is because it's such a short time that we live so long. And so we are countering hundreds of thousands of years where the human species were dying much younger, and that was the program. So we need to change the whole program for our species now.
Exactly. That's part of the work that we're doing is changing the program for the species, which I just think is very noble work, right? It's just
Yes.
it's
Well,
that's
yeah,
worth
because
getting up in the
now
morning
at
for.
this level of awakening, we understand that we're not here just to make babies or to improve physically the species. We are here to bring more and more divine presence. And we do it when we're more mature. We don't do it at 18 normally. Right? So it's actually completely changed. We need to stay here longer if we become wiser, because then we can make changes to the way we live that are actually going to help the earth evolve as we evolve with her. Because also our planet, we must not forget, is undergoing a major mutation now, a spiritual initiation for the earth also, not just for us. So when we understand this, we can do it together with her. But we normally don't understand this at 16, 17, 18. So we do need to change this programming so we can help this whole transition happen. Not just because we want to selfishly live longer and look like we're 18 when we're 50,
Right.
which is
Right.
interesting, but maybe not the main purpose of evolution.
Yeah, and I love that. It's, with the intention of being in service to the evolution of consciousness on the planet. And that is the mission of Damanhur, of the people who are in Damanhur, right? That are really actively seeking to change the timeline, to move into a positive timeline.
Yeah, and to create, like the temples we built under the mountain, to create structures that can help us as antennas to really tune into these new codes of evolution. They're coming to help all of us evolve, to really be able to receive the new programming that is coming through the sun, which is our star, from the central planets in the galaxy. They're more evolved. So it comes through the sun, through these energy lines that we call the synchronic lines that transport energy and information. So we're building all these temples with the understanding that a temple is not a place for devotion where I go and ask, the divine forces, but it's a place where I work together with all the forces that make up reality so that we can evolve together and I can receive this information that supports the unfolding of this great plan for humanity that, being very optimistic, we believe is in place. We believe there is a plan for humanity, which is not that of genetic reproduction only, not at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting to think of, that it's kind of time for humanity to step up and be in partnership, right, with the intelligences within the planet and the intelligences off planet, and to kind of take our place as grown-ups,
Yeah.
hopefully, spiritually kind of wise and wise enough to partner, wise and humble enough, actually, um, to know that we're a part of a huge web um, of intelligences that are working toward evolving our consciousness. That's exciting work. So Cheryl wants to know, how do you account for the appalling destructive actions throughout history of our species? Um, from this perspective, how do you reframe just the tens of thousands of years of uh, appalling destructive actions that we have wrought upon each other?
Well, this is a question that is very profound. In the understanding of my philosophical and spiritual school, like in many other schools, is that within us we have a divine principle as well as a principle that goes anti-life. And so we always have this wonderful curse called free will.
Mhm.
We have to choose every time which direction we take. And obviously, as humanity, we haven't been so good in always choosing the best direction towards love and unity. We've actually very often chosen the most painful direction, but we have this inside of us in every single choice we make. And some things are horrible because we see them as, like they're obvious, but there are so many small choices we make every day that also could make a difference and we're not aware of them. So this is really, yeah, this is the huge responsibility of being a human being. And
Yeah.
this force of the anti-life is present in every human being as well as in the forces around us. So again, not because there are forces that don't have a physical body, they're all necessarily positive. This duality, which is not the duality of yin yang, yin yang, the duality of day and night, light and darkness, is the way of evolution. So we couldn't have light if we didn't have darkness. So is not that darkness is bad and light is good. This is a very naive way of looking at things. And the Tao tells us beautifully, remember, you cannot have white without the black dot, because in that black dot is the beginning of the transformation that allows what is really a spiral to continue. right? Otherwise, it would be stuck. But there's something outside this beautiful balance of light and darkness and constant oppositions. And that is something that does not belong to our divine nature. Why does the absolute accept that this anti-life principle exists? I don't know. We do not know the plans of the absolute. But what I can say is that the design, the purpose of humanity, from our perspective, of course, is that of going towards more diversity and unity, not towards more destruction. So, you know, for instance, when we see corporations that take a seed whose only purpose is that of creating more life, and they modified it genetically so that it cannot reproduce, that is beyond the balance of the Tao. That is something that is completely anti-life. And I'm using this example because I don't want to go to other examples, but this gives an idea. Okay, this was not in the program of nature. This is not in the program of more diversity, of more beauty, and more life. So there we can see that there are choices that are constantly being made that take us farther from that divine unity that we need to be able to recreate through more diversity. So this is the paradox. And this is the challenge of being human, the understanding that it is through cultivating diversity that we can become one again, not by destroying everything. I mean, Star Wars talks about this very beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the myths and the storytelling, because a lot of this philosophy comes through in entertainment and even in video games. Not that I play them, but my son does, and I see themes that are coming through that are quite beautiful in about cooperation and co-creation and working together. So I'm hoping, you know, that shift is upon us. I want to let people know, if you want to ask questions directly, you can just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Jerry, I think you said you wanted to say something about moving back in time. And you can just, yeah, let me unmute you. Yeah. Hi, Jerry. Esperide, this is Jerry Jen. He's the chairman of FMBR.
Hi, Jerry.
And
Nice to meet you.
Very, very nice meeting you, and excellent discussions, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just thinking that my friend Meg and I are doing a study on birth of new humanity and all the changes on Earth that's going on. And we go back in time all the time to look at various things, and we look at it in terms of subtle energies. And so with intention, you know, I'll give you an example. We're looking at the auras of people, and I was interested in seeing the subtle energies of people, different types of people, different types of things throughout time. So I'd go back in time, and I'd look at myself even. I can go back in time when I was a baby, and what was my aura like then, and what is the aura like now. And I found that we can do the same thing by even looking at a picture, a photograph or a painting of someone. It could be an avatar from the past, and I could pick up the subtle energies of that person, or a tyrant from the past. I could pick up the subtle energies of that person. And then, in terms of the studies of currently the birth of humanity, what happened a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, we can track what is happening because we're undergoing this huge change in energies that's going on right now. And we can track when things were happening. And it's all done by just intention and looking at the subtle energies. I want to go back 3 days, and what's the energy like at that point in time? And we're there. So I was very taken by what you're saying in terms of time and moving through time. And it's something that we all have the abilities to do, is just making a determination to do that. So Meg and I have been doing that consistently for the last year and a half once we learned about being able to do that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Jerry, when you say that, when you're looking at nature of the energies, you're talking about sort of the architecture of the energetic body, of the energy field around a human.
Yeah, exactly. I was curious, for example, in terms of myself as I was maturing from a baby to adult, and had all the pictures from all the different times. I could look at myself and see what my subtle energies are, and everyone has that. And I could look at it now. I look at it a year ago, 30 years ago, and see the progression of that. But then I discovered that I could do that with historical figures. I could look at Julius Caesar. He did that. And what was he like, and what types of auras did he have at that point in time? And that gave me a lot of information about lots of different people. And I'm not impinging upon anyone's free will, because there's, in a certain sense, because it's a long time ago. In a certain sense, it's now. So I am impinging from that perspective. But I can look at that and see what they were, the energies, and I can look at the people now and see what the energies they have, and then have an idea of how people are in a totally different way. So I just thought it was a very interesting thing that was just studying. It's nothing to do necessarily with what I'm doing right now in terms of looking at all the people and the inner earth energies and what's happening to us now. But that's just a curiosity thing. But I use the tools all the time to, what was the energy like a couple of days ago, just to see. And then I go back in time and check what had happened since that point in time. And that way we can look at things on an ongoing basis. So that's all I was trying to do.
Thank you. Actually, Esperide, could you speak to that? What about like historical figures? And because on the one hand, we are all one, right? There's this a one humanity, or this one everything. And then you spoke about this individuality, people, being individuals and learning through that. Can we, in your work, can you go to the life of someone that you don't necessarily think you were, like Julius Caesar, and learn something from that experience, from the experience of that individual?
It could be
That could,
probably, but it's a completely different kind of work.
okay.
Because what I'm interested in what I guide, is people through their soul retrieval. So the part your transmission. So what is that oversoul transmitting? If that oversoul is transmitting Julius Caesar, but is not your frequency, why would you go? Why would, it's a different process. Jerry was describing something completely different. He's going to observe and I don't know what it does with that, but obviously it has a field of application. But it's a different thing than doing an experience in which you feel that you're living the life in another point of time.
So
It's a completely different thing.
It's something you're going to be talking about in the workshops that you're doing. You're doing a workshop this weekend in San Diego, in La Jolla, right? And then next,
not La Jolla, it's near La Jolla, in a beautiful private mansion with swimming pool, and in the mountains with a lot of nature. So it's a perfect also setting for this.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then next weekend you'll be here up in Northern California in San Mateo.
And then I'm going to Portland, Maine at the end of August. So I have 3 different appointments.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And we'll direct people to learn about those. But
yes.
You talked about at least for the one you're going to do with us, and I will be there with friends. You talked about finding a version of you that holds the keys to spiritual gifts and happiness. Can you talk a little bit about that process, or is that something that's just too complicated to go into here?
It's not complicated, but basically, if sometimes the people say, often, oh, let's see what the universe is giving me, telling me, and da, da, da. They forget the universe, or whatever, I use the universe as an example now, is giving you an answer or a synchronicity simply, or not simply, but because you're paying attention. So again, it's an interaction, right? It's not the universe that is coming to you, but it's you paying attention to something and giving it a meaning, right? So for instance, if the number 22222 has a meaning for me, and I happen to look at my phone and I say, oh, it's 22.22, then I'm seeing it and I say, oh, the universe is giving me a sign, but only because I'm happening to put my attention there at that moment, and because that is meaningful for me. Do you follow? So it's an
It's
interaction.
because you assigned a meaning to that?
Exactly, because I
If there's
assign,
no meaning outside of what you've assigned.
yeah, because maybe for you 44444 is important, but 222 it doesn't make it. So we both would go through the same thing, but you wouldn't pay attention. So it's always a relationship with reality. Is nothing is just happening and has a meaning per se. There's got to be a sentient being that has some interaction with the event to give it a meaning. So the same thing is, if you want to find another you in time, you need to know why and who you want to meet. Otherwise, it's random. So you cannot just come, oh, I'm sitting here and I want to meet someone. I want to meet someone that was intelligent. Well, it's not enough. So someone that holds the key to your happiness, what I mean is, I invite and guide people to really focus on what it is that you need now. What is the key that you need now? And sometimes people come that already really know, because sometimes sometimes they have traumas or dreams, recurring dreams that they want to figure out why, or other things. But sometimes you just say, okay, this is a time in my life in which if I knew, for instance, a painter would really help me because I want to create illustrations for this book and it's not happening, and I know I can, because if we can think of it, it means we have it. You cannot come up with something that is not you. It's impossible. And sometimes even starting from that, then your divine presence within will lead you to meet somebody different. But it started always with some request, some interaction, some relationship with time and with yourself, with that oversoul.
And now that I'm going to say this out loud, it's going to sound like a silly question, but because everything's happening at once, I was thinking about, because we talk a lot about past lives, right? But I was thinking about future lives, right? Of future you, or another, a life that you're leading concurrently, but it's in the future.
They're all concurrent.
Right.
So also our lives in the future, of course.
So that's also available, right?
Yes, and it's a little more complex.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes it happens spontaneously to have memories of the future, but then you need to understand how that is possible and what is the interaction. Because in my experience, I've had memories of a specific past life in the future, and I didn't know it was the future. That was confirmed to me by Falco. He was still alive, the founder of my community. So he said, yes, but this is not a past life of yours. It's a future life. And I was like, how can I possibly remember a future life? And then I realized that what was I remembering is this particular lifetime, I am a past life for. And it is a potential future life of mine if I make certain steps, because otherwise the actual transmission and who I am now would be tampered with, and I could never have that as a future life. You see what I mean? It gets a little
I do.
because
I do, and
it's paradoxical. It is happening simultaneously, yes, and simultaneously we are inside linear time also. So we have to understand that we are, as human beings, constantly living in this paradox. So if I, it's a classical thing. If I go back in time and meet my mother, and would she then conceive me if I go before I'm conceived to see what happens? Would that event change her timeline? Therefore, she would never conceive me. These are real problems. These are real mathematical problems, meaning the structure of reality has certain rules.
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's good stuff. So talk a little bit about what you'll be doing in the workshops that you're in the States to do.
Yeah. So the first part of the workshop is really about helping people perceive what time is from the different perspectives and really getting into, oh, okay, this is what time is for me. This is what time feels like for me. This is what the meaning I give to time. And so there is a part of that. And then I guide them to find one particular person that they want to meet across time, and then to become that person. So you really start to feel and think and perceive like that person, and then seeing and helping people see why that particular person answer your calling. So where is the healing, the empowerment that you want to have? So basically, do you want this relationship, this transmission, this communication to be at a higher volume? You want to hear it more? Or do you need to lower the volume because maybe there is too much disturbance in your present life? And then when that is in balance, then where is the gift of knowing, really knowing in me that I'm living in multiple times and that I'm not just this body, and then my soul is a group soul. Because again, that's another big thing. My soul is my soul. Well, my soul is a group already. And so if we take it at a larger scale, my soul is also your soul. And they're all simultaneous. And there is one great soul of humanity having this experience through all of us. And I think this increases the level of love we feel for ourselves, each other, and really humans. We need to love each other. But we really need to deeply love each other to awaken that divine sense of love that we have in us. Then we can make different choices and don't go along the path that Cheryl was, describing, that we kept choosing because there's not enough love.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because I'm sorry for my silence here because I feel like I'm processing a lot. It's very expansive, right? You can go.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. It's complex, and at the same time, it makes tremendous sense to me. It feels just wonderfully comprehensive in a way that serves something higher, and it's empowering because I think we can step into a place where we're not as at the effect of certain choices that have been made in the past, right? So let me see what.
I read a comment by Holly, hi Holly, about hypnosis. So of course, hypnosis is a very effective way of going into a past life and heal things and retrieve things. It's not the process that I chose to follow. I'm trained in hypnosis, but this particular process, what is interesting for me is to have people have an experience of being lucid mediums to themselves. So being fully present, awake while I'm eating, when I'm talking to you, and at the same time, holding in my space the awareness of being somebody else. So my purpose is not only to focus on retrieving information or changing things from the past life, but as I said, it's more about how do we stitch time together? How do we become fully aware that being beings that live in time as a dimension is our true nature? So that is not something that I personally found I could do through hypnosis. And this is also one of the reasons why I like to do this in groups and individually, because then it's a different process. I also do individual process, and I also do it online. That's also a possibility, and it's fascinating, and sometimes it's exactly what people need, right?
Right.
And so I'm saying all of these methods are good. And if hypnosis can take you to a past life and heal you as it can, it's fantastic. And sometimes it's exactly what you need, because you need to go and do that specific thing. What I try to do the best as I can is to create an experience that is transpersonal, not only personal.
Yes. And all healing, even, individual healing contributes to the healing of the whole,
Absolutely. I'm
right?
completely in favor. And I think that all the work that can support humans now to awaken and to start not believing, but knowing that we are beings that live multiple lives is crucial. So everything is wonderful. I don't
Yeah.
see
And
a position, all the contrary.
Suzanne brings up the point that there is always evolution going on, where there's a leading edge at the same time as we're all a composite of what has been. The Brian Swimme, the author of The Universe Story, where we are one humanity. She says, I wonder about dipping back into the past to recall or tune into what was, as the way things work. Suzanne, are you talking about like finding a time in history when things were working, well, maybe, and bringing that forward?
Yeah, it's possible. There again, this is another key thing. It's not necessarily that my next lifetime will be in the future. But also, lifetimes, if we look at them linearly, like one after the other, they don't go one after the other on the timeline from the year 0 to the year 5,000. We move across the fabric of time according to the complexity we acquire. So if I live a life of high complexity, I might come back in a moment in the future where we're out of this crisis, yes. Or who knows, maybe I go and incarnate at the peak time of Alexandria of Egypt. And I'm a scribe there, in the library. And that I just have the whole wisdom and the knowledge of the whole of humanity. So that also is another important thing to start thinking not so linearly and consequentially.
Oh, so she clarifies nothing concrete to go back to. It's all in now as we are what has been. Like what you were saying, it's all available to us now. Concurrence, right?
Yeah.
Nice. So Jackie says, so one's next life would be one's conscious awareness on another life, past or future. So one next life would be one's conscious awareness of another life, past or future, since it's a multiverse.
This is getting too complicated for me. So I'm open to all interpretations, but I try to keep it as simple as I can.
Yeah. Like now we are.
And I think we've been going over 1 hour, so maybe this is also.
Yeah, so maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll wrap up soon unless anybody has something burning to say.
Yes.
Can we let people know what the website is to go find more information about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Okay,
I think it's Portals of Time, right?
yeah, but I think it's Success with Soul / Portals of Time. But I'm not on my computer, so I don't have the link here. Maybe you do. And otherwise, people can email me if you want. That's the easiest also, and I can very easily send you the link. And it's my email. You can email me at esperide@damano.org. Maybe I can write it in the chat here. And that would be very easy. Or maybe ask you, darling, and then you have the link, because I don't have it. And again, this is not my computer.
Let me pull this up.
Yeah, esperideananas.org. And this is if someone is also interested in private sessions, you can write to me, and that's also possible. And I can also give you information on these 3 weekends coming up.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to send this out on the YouTube channel. I'm not typing this in correctly.
Thank you so much. A brilliant, uncomplicated manner of bringing time to us all. Thank you. That's a lovely comment.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I will send out to everybody who registered. I'll send out the email link, and I'll put it in the FMBR newsletter as well. And I will put it on the YouTube channel.
Thank you so much,
in the comments on the YouTube channel. So if you're listening on YouTube, you can find out more about Esperide's work and what she's going to be doing while she's in the States. So again, I'm so happy that you're here, that you've joined us from Italy, and wish you well. And I will see you next week.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you.